Guys, today we're quickly going to have a look at exchange rates. This is mainly applicable to grade 11 and 12 students in mathematical literacy, and as always there will also be an accompanying worksheet. So let's get going. First of all, when we talk about exchange rates, we need to know that this helps us to understand the value of one currency in relation to other currencies. And when we start looking at what a currency is, we see it's something like the rand, the US dollar, the British pound, and so on. Where do we find these different exchange rates? So you can find foreign exchange tables, and here you can see two examples of those with different currencies of different countries that they are indicating. So when we estimate the value of a currency in relation to other currencies, we make sure that we have at least two currencies to look at. In this case, we are using South African Rand and we are using the Euro. So what you need to remember is that the currency can be given in one of two forms. In this case, it's telling us that 1 Rand is 0,052 Euro, but it also tells you that 1 Euro is 19,7 Rands. So the one is Rands to Euro and the other one is Euro to Rands. So when we use this information that was just given to us, we can answer questions about it. So if there's a question like which currency is stronger, we need to have a look at what the information is saying. So first of all, it's telling us that if we give someone in the European Union 1 Rand, we will get 0,052 euros. However, if they give us 1 euro, then we'll have to give them 19,07 rands. So in this case, the stronger currency is definitely the euro, and therefore the weaker currency is going to be the South African Rand. We can also get the history or trends over the past few weeks or months or even years comparing these two currencies. So what you'll see here is it says euro to ZAR, so the euro to rand, a 60-day history. So now, if it's in a graph format like here, this gives us a trend of what has been happening over a period of time, in this case, 60 days. So first of all, this is asking us if it's euro to rand or rand to euro. And if we have a look at the top here, it says euro to rand. And then, does the slope of the graph move up or down? So what you'll be able to see here is, in this case, the slope of the graph moves up some days and it goes down some days. That means that the exchange rate was fluctuating over the last 60 days. So this will give us information about when a currency strengthens or when a currency weakens. So remember, if one currency strengthens, the other one will weaken. Now, if we look at questions about this, when was the euro the strongest? So now we look for the highest point in the graph, and that's going to be over here. So it will be May 18th. How much did you pay in rands per euro during that time? And that would be about 20,01 or 20,05. When was the rand the strongest? So now we're going to look for the lowest point, and that's going to be June the 10th or June the 11th. You can see it's not quite on June the 12th. And then how much did we pay for it? It was 18 Rand and 80 cents. So if we look at something like this, now instead of having it in a graph format, we have it in a table format. They can ask the same questions. When was the euro the strongest? So now we're going to look for where the euro has the highest value, which is going to be 19,353. But the question was when, so the answer is going to be 7 July 2020. How much did you pay in rands per euro? And that's the 19,353. When was the rand the strongest? Now we look for the lowest point, which is the 15th of July. And how much did you pay in rand? And that was going to be 18,934 rands. So how do we know that these two exchange rates are the same? So we've been working with the rand and the euro, but if we look at this, it actually is written in the two different formats. So if we have here that 1 euro is 19 Rand and 7 cents, I want to know how many euros there will be in 1 Rand. So we use what we call the magic method, which is divide up and times across. So it's going to be 1 divided by 19,07 times 1 giving me 0,052438 and so on. And if we go back to what we have here, we see that that actually is the same answer. Now it could also be done the other way around, which would then 1 rand is equal to 0,052 euro, and that's what we got from this point over here. And then we have 1 euro is equal to how many rands? So then we do the same, we divide up and we multiply across, and then we get 19,23076923, which we see over here is slightly different to what we have here. But remember, what we did with the 0,052 is we rounded it off. We had more decimals that actually were part of that answer. Now, when we look at the buying power of a currency, the definition is the value of the currency in relation to the cost of living in this country. So if we have a look here, we can see just more or less where Johannesburg, which is a South African city, falls in terms of the cost of living. And if you look at the cost of living in South Africa only, you'll see that Cape Town is going to fall in the 4th position. So if we understand what the type of things are we need to consider when we calculate, it's all items like food, housing, clothes, transport, personal care, and entertainment. And here you can see they calculated the average price of these things for 1 or 2 people, depending on what they are going to use. So remember, we said the buying power of a currency is the value of the currency in relation to the cost of living. So if we look at something like this, a simple example of buying a cup of coffee, we will see that all of it has been converted to pounds, and in Italy it will be about 0,78 pounds, in South Africa 1,16 pounds, and in the UAE 4,47 pounds. So even though we don't use the pound as our specific currency, it needed to all be converted to the same currency so that we could use that to be able to compare them. So if we look at this, which one had the best purchasing power? It would be Italy, because when they were all in the same currency, you would pay the less. Which country then had the worst purchasing power? And in this case, it would be the UAE. Also remember that this is only applicable to the cup of coffee that we were dealing with. Now, how does the purchasing power of a cup of coffee in South Africa compare to Australia? So if we have a look here again and we look at South Africa and we look at Australia, we see that we are actually paying less in pounds if we compare those two. So therefore, South Africa has a better purchasing power for a cup of coffee than what Australia will have. This is something that's actually used quite often. It's called Burgonomics, or the Big Mac Index. So what you'll see here is it gives you the price of a Big Mac in selected countries, and then once again it's all been converted to US dollars. And here you can see South Africa is right at the bottom. So that means that when we compare the price of a Big Mac in South Africa and Switzerland, remember both have been converted to US dollars, we would technically have a better buying power in terms of this Big Mac. Alright, let's have a quick look at how to use the Big Mac Index, or how to apply it. So first of all, you'll see for all 4 of these countries, it gives you the Big Mac Index and it gives you the hourly wages. So now what we're going to work out is we're going to basically work out how many Big Macs can you buy with your hourly wages. So what we have here in Korea, it's going to be the minimum hourly wages over the price of a Big Mac, giving us 1.3. So that means every hour, someone working there could buy 1,3 Big Macs. In Norway, if we do the same thing and we use the information that was given to us about Norway, hourly wages over the Big Mac Index, we get a total of 3,1. So that means for every hour's wages, they can buy 3,1 Big Macs. What that means in this case is that in terms of the Big Mac Index, the cost of living in Norway would be better, because with the money you are getting, you are actually able to buy more Big Macs. They use the Big Mac because McDonald's is a global brand and a lot of countries have these stores. So when we compare the purchasing power for two countries, we need to make sure that we use the same item that they are going to buy, and we also need to make sure that we use two people in the same profession who normally would earn the same type of salary. So let's look in Kuwait. If we have a normal monthly salary for a profession of 783 dinar, and a can of Coke in Kuwait costs 0.499 dinar, then we'll find that they have a purchasing power of 1,957.5 cans of Coke with their monthly salary, and therefore we can round it off. If we do the same thing for Russia, and we take the normal monthly salary for a person with the same type of employment, the price of a can of Coke, then we'll find that in Russia, on average, you would be able to buy 781 cans of Coke with your salary if it's the same profession. So what of these two, which country is the one with the best purchasing power? And that would therefore be Kuwait, because with the amount of money that you earn, you can buy a lot more in that country. We also need to remember that we should be able to convert currencies. So here's two more tables. And then what we're going to look at in these examples is just quickly for you to understand that if we have the rand to the Argentinian peso, for instance, we can see that it's going to be 1 rand is so many pesos, or so many pesos is 1 rand. So if we convert 50 pesos to rand, we're going to use the same method we've been using, and that gives you 11 rand 73. If we convert 650 rand to Argentinian pesos, we're going to get 2,770.83. Remember, we are using the method where we divide up and we multiply across. Use the same information, and we're working with the Bahraini dinar. Then you're going to see the same thing is going to apply to it. Here, 1 rand is going to be so many dinar, or this is going to be 1 dinar is going to be 44 rand. So there we go. And then there's another one using the same example. So these are the type of calculations that we need to be able to do. When we look at currency conversions, it's also important to remember that we can be asked to do these in context, so when there's a bit more information. So let's use the Australian dollar and the South African rand, and on a website we find that from Australia you can buy a little koala backpack for 37 Australian dollars. The question can be, calculate the price of 1 koala backpack in rands. So we know that 1 Australian dollar is 11 rand 70. We are going to divide up times across. So therefore 432 rands and 90 cents. So just remember, if we look at all the different trends, we can look at something like this. And now we can ask, it's still the Australian dollar to the South African rand, and it's a time period of a week. So what you can see here is it gives you a low and it gives you a high. So that means they can ask questions like, what is the best date for a South African to order the backpack? And therefore we would like to pay as little as possible. So it would be here on the 15th of July. And then they can ask, what is the best date for Australians to send it to South Africa? And then they will look for the highest price, and that will be here, the 10th or the 11th of July, as they will get more money in rands. Now, what you also need to be aware of is that when you are going to be using foreign currency, there's normally going to be a currency conversion fee, which is given as a percentage. And that's something that you'll have to calculate. And remember that the bank or the company or the forex place where you're going to exchange your money is going to take some of your money as a conversion fee. And when we think about exchange rates, we need to remember that something like planning a trip can become part of this. So here I've just put some things here for you. So things we need to take into consideration: the cost of traveling, the cost of accommodation, the cost of spending money, and so on. So if we look here at the price of a flight to Botswana, the exchange rate between the rand and the pula, some information about accommodation, and even some information about the difference in petrol price between these two countries. So now that we have spoken about all of this, let's make sure that we remember that there are 4 levels of questions, level 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you need to be able to answer questions in these 4 levels.